Dr. Antares scoffed at the holographic display of human reproduction, her tentacles curling in disgust. Pathetic, she declared to the Mazarian Science Council aboard the research vessel Zenith. The year was 2150, and Earth hung like a blue marble outside the ship's viewports. Observe the inefficiency, Antares continued, her voice dripping with disdain. 9 Earth months of gestation, followed by excruciating childbirth, and then years of intensive care for a single offspring. How has this species survived? The council members chittered in agreement, their compound eyes reflecting the harsh lighting of the conference room. Antares felt a surge of pride as she concluded her presentation on human breeding. The verdict was clear. Humans were an inferior species, barely worth studying. Meanwhile, on the planet below, Mark Hunter's datapad chimed with an urgent message. The 28-year-old geneticist's heart raced as he read the classified communication from the United Earth government. Humanity faced extinction within 3 generations due to plummeting fertility rates. All conventional solutions had failed. Mark's hands shook as he processed the implications. Billions of lives hung in the balance, and he was being called upon to save his species. The government's proposal was radical. Seek help from the Mazarians, an advanced alien race known for their mastery of genetic manipulation. Hours later, Mark found himself aboard a shuttle, rocketing towards the Zenith. The diplomatic team briefed him on the delicate nature of their mission. Failure meant the end of humanity. Success, well, that remained to be seen. The Mazarian crew greeted them with cold indifference as they boarded the alien vessel. Mark's expertise in xenolinguistics allowed him to understand their chittering whispers. More human specimens, one guard remarked. I thought we were done with these primitives. During the first official meeting, Dr. Antares couldn't contain her mockery. Your breeding practices are laughable, she declared, unaware that Mark comprehended every word. It's a wonder your species hasn't died out already. Mark's patience snapped. In flawless Mazarian, he retorted, Perhaps you should study us more closely before passing judgment, Doctor. There's more to human reproduction than you realize. Silence fell over the room. Antares' tentacles writhed in shock and embarrassment. The Mazarian captain, sensing the rising tensions, intervened with a proposal. A joint research project, he suggested. Dr. Antares will work directly with the human, Mark Hunter, to study their reproduction in detail. The stakes were brutally clear. If the Mazarians couldn't solve Earth's fertility crisis, they would declare humans a failed species and withdraw all support. Mark locked eyes with Antares, seeing the challenge in her alien gaze. He knew that changing her mind about human breeding was now humanity's only hope for survival. As Mark and Antares reluctantly agreed to begin their research, the air crackled with unspoken tension. Neither could have predicted the journey that lay ahead, one that would challenge their preconceptions, push the boundaries of science, and perhaps forge an unlikely connection between 2 vastly different beings. The fate of humanity now rested on an experiment in interspecies cooperation, and as the Zenith continued its silent orbit around Earth, the clock was already ticking. The Zenith's laboratory hummed with activity as Mark and Dr. Antares began their joint research project. Sleek Mazarian equipment lined the walls, juxtaposed against the familiar human technology Mark had brought aboard. The air crackled with unspoken tension as the 2 researchers moved about the space, their bodies a careful dance of avoidance. These sample containers are inadequate, Dr. Antares chittered, her tentacles curling around a set of vials. Human technology is so primitive. Mark bit back a retort, focusing instead on calibrating a microscope. Our methods may seem basic to you, but they've served us well for centuries. As they worked, a holographic display flickered to life, revealing the face of Dr. Emily Chen. Her expertise in embryology proved invaluable as they delved deeper into the intricacies of human fertility. The latest data from Earth shows a 15% decline in viable embryos over the past decade, Dr. Chen reported, her voice tinged with concern. We're running out of time. Days turned into weeks as the research crawled forward. Dr. Antares constantly questioned human methods, her disdain evident in every gesture and word. Why expend so much energy on a single offspring? She asked, studying a holographic model of fetal development. It's inefficient. Mark sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. There's more to human reproduction than just biology, Doctor. It's about love, family, the joy of raising a child. And Tara's compound eyes narrowed. Irrelevant factors. Reproduction should be about species survival, nothing more. Their breakthrough came unexpectedly. As Mark analyzed a new batch of samples, he noticed an anomaly. Dr. Antares, look at this, he called out, excitement coloring his voice. The Mazarian scientist glided over, her tentacles hovering over the microscope. What am I looking at, human? A protein, Mark explained, pointing to the display. One we've never seen before. It appears to play a crucial role in fertility, but it's damaged, Antares finished, her voice uncharacteristically soft. Environmental factors on Earth, I presume? Mark nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. This could be the key we've been looking for. For the first time since their partnership began, a hint of respect crept into Antares' voice. Perhaps human biology is more complex than I initially thought. Their cautious optimism was short-lived. News of the joint research project leaked to Earth, causing a public outcry against alien involvement in human affairs. Senator James Harper's face dominated news feeds, his voice thundering through the Zenith's communication channels. We cannot allow these aliens to meddle with the very essence of humanity, Harper declared, his words stoking the fires of the xenophobia. This project must be shut down immediately. The political pressure only added to the mounting stress in the laboratory. Mark and Antares worked tirelessly, attempting to synthesize an enhanced version of the newfound protein. Their first attempts failed spectacularly, resulting in the destruction of several precious samples. As they cleaned up the latest failed experiment, Mark noticed a change in Antares. Her movements were less sharp, her words less cutting. Tell me, Mark, she began, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. Why do humans continue to reproduce despite such challenges? Mark paused, considering his words carefully. It's complicated. There's a drive within us, a desire to create life, to leave a legacy, but it's also about love, about forming connections that last beyond our own lifetimes. Antares's tentacles writhed in confusion. Love? This concept still eludes me. Before Mark could respond, the Mazarian captain's voice crackled over the intercom. Dr. Antares, Mr. Hunter, report to the bridge immediately. The captain's ultimatum hung heavy in the air as they returned to the lab. 1 month to produce significant results, or the Mazarians would abandon Earth to its fate. Mark paced the length of the laboratory, his mind racing. Suddenly he stopped, turning to face Antares. I have an idea, he said, his voice steady despite the risk he was about to propose. We need fresh, living samples. I volunteer my own genetic material for the next phase of experiments. Antares recoiled slightly, her tentacles curling inward. That's unorthodox. It might be our best chance, Mark argued. We're running out of options. After a moment of tense silence, Antares nodded. Very well, human. We will proceed with your plan. As they prepared for this new phase of research, alarms blared throughout the Zenith. The ship shuddered, sending equipment crashing to the floor. Mark stumbled, catching himself on a nearby console. What's happening? He shouted over the din. Antares' tentacles flew over a control panel. Life support systems are malfunctioning. Gravity and atmospheric controls are fluctuating wildly. Mark's eyes widened as he watched their carefully prepared samples begin to destabilize. If we don't stabilize the environment, we'll lose everything. Without hesitation, they sprang into action. Mark worked to secure the experiments while Antares interfaced with the ship's systems, her tentacles a blur of motion across the alien controls. As artificial gravity fluctuated, Mark found himself floating momentarily before being slammed back to the floor. He gritted his teeth, fighting nausea as he reached for the last sample container. Antares, he called out, I can't reach the stabilization unit. The Mazarian scientist turned, assessing the situation in an instant. Using her tentacles for leverage, she propelled herself across the room, snatching the container from mid-air just as another gravity wave hit. For a moment, their eyes met, human and alien, united in their desperate struggle to save their work, and by extension, the future of humanity. As alarms continued to blare and the ship groaned around them, Mark and Antares stood side by side, their initial animosity forgotten in the face of this new challenge. They had a month to achieve the impossible, to unlock the secrets of human fertility and potentially save an entire species from extinction. The Zenith continued its orbit around Earth, oblivious to the drama unfolding within its hull. Inside the laboratory, two beings from vastly different worlds worked in tandem, their fates now inextricably linked. The true test of their partnership and the future of humanity was just beginning. The true test of their partnership and the future of humanity was just starting to unfold. As Mark and Antares worked feverishly to stabilize their experiments, the ship's artificial gravity continued to fluctuate wildly. Equipment floated and crashed around them, creating a chaotic dance of metal and glass. Suddenly, Mark noticed something peculiar on one of the displays. "Antares, look at this," he called out, gesturing to a screen showing sperm motility data. "The samples we just collected, they're behaving differently." The Mazarian scientist glided over, her tentacles expertly navigating the unstable environment. Her compound eyes widened as she analyzed the readings. Fascinating. The fluctuations in gravity and atmospheric pressure appear to be creating optimal conditions for human sperm motility. Mark's mind raced with possibilities. This could be the breakthrough we've been looking for. What if we could recreate these conditions in a controlled environment? Antares' tentacles twisted skeptically. "It's a risky proposition, human. We have no guarantee of replicating these exact conditions." "But it's worth trying," Mark insisted, his voice filled with commitment. "We're running out of time and options. This might be our best chance." After a moment of contemplation, Antares nodded. "Very well. Let's proceed with your experiment." Over the next several hours, they worked tirelessly to construct a specialized chamber within the lab. Mazarian gravity manipulation technology was integrated with human medical equipment, creating a unique hybrid environment. As they put the finishing touches on their creation, Mark took a deep breath. "I'll be the first test subject," he announced, rolling up his sleeve. "We need fresh samples, and I'm the most readily available donor." Antares' tentacles curled inward, a gesture Mark had come to recognize as discomfort. "Are you certain, Mark? The risks are worth taking," he finished, offering a reassuring smile. "Let's do this." As they initiated the experiment, the specialized chamber hummed to life. Mark provided his sample, and they watched with anxious anticipation as it was introduced into the carefully calibrated environment. Hours ticked by as they monitored the results, the tension in the lab palpable. Finally, Antares broke the silence. "Mark, look at these readings. The sperm viability and motility, they've increased by over 200%. Excitement coursed through Mark's veins as he reviewed the data. "This is incredible. We need to take this further. What if we introduced egg cells?" Antares' tentacles writhed thoughtfully. "A logical next step. However, I suspect your human colleagues might have ethical concerns about creating embryos in an alien laboratory." As if on cue, the holographic display flickered to life, revealing Dr. Emily Chen's concerned face. "Mark, Antares, I've been reviewing your latest data. While the results are promising, I have serious reservations about proceeding with fertilization experiments." A heated debate erupted. Mark argued passionately for moving forward, emphasizing the potential benefits for humanity. Dr. Chen countered with ethical considerations and the risks of creating human life in an extraterrestrial environment. Antares observed silently, her alien features unreadable. After intense discussion, a compromise was reached. They would proceed with a fertilization experiment, but any resulting embryos would be immediately cryogenically frozen and transported to Earth for further study under human supervision. As they prepared for the next phase of their research, Antares found herself increasingly captivated by the process. She spent hours observing the fertilized eggs through advanced Mazarian imaging technology, marveling at the intricacy of human embryonic development. "It's remarkable," she murmured, her voice tinged with awe. "The resilience of human life, the complexity of your reproductive process. Perhaps I underestimated your species." Mark smiled. sensing a shift in the Mazarian scientist's perspective. There's still so much we don't understand about ourselves. That's why this research is so crucial. Their progress, however, was soon overshadowed by escalating political tensions on Earth. Senator James Harper's face dominated the news feeds, his voice booming through the Zenith's communication channels. "We cannot allow these aliens to meddle with the very essence of human life," Harper declared, his words stoking the fires of xenophobia. "I am introducing legislation to terminate this dangerous collaboration and expel all Mazarian vessels from Earth's orbit." The impact of Harper's campaign was felt almost immediately. Mark received an urgent communication from the United Earth government. He had 48 hours to conclude the research and return home before diplomatic relations with the Mazarians were severed. Faced with this ultimatum, Mark and Antares threw themselves into their work with renewed vigor. They worked around the clock, analyzing data, refining their experiments, and compiling their findings. The close quarters and high-pressure situation led to increased tension between them, their conflicting approaches often resulting in heated exchanges. Yet beneath the friction, a grudging admiration began to grow. Mark found himself drawn to Antares' analytical mind and her newfound curiosity about human emotions. Antares, in turn, became intrigued by Mark's passion and adaptability in the face of challenges. As they reviewed the final results of their fertility experiments, their hands accidentally brushed while reaching for the same datapad. The unexpected contact sent a jolt of awareness through both of them, hinting at a deeper connection forming beneath their professional relationship. The moment was shattered by an alert from the ship's communication system. Senator Harper had succeeded in pushing through an emergency vote. The United Earth government had officially ordered the immediate termination of the joint research project and Mark's return to Earth. Mark and Antares stood in stunned silence, the weight of the situation settling over them. They had made significant progress, but their research remained incomplete. The fate of humanity's fertility crisis hung in the balance, complicated by the growing political hostility on Earth and the unexpected personal connection developing between them. "What do we do now?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Antares' tentacles curled thoughtfully. "We have a decision to make, Mark. One that could impact not only our research, but the future of human-Mazarian relations, and perhaps the fate of your species." As they contemplated their next move, the Zenith continued its silent orbit around Earth. Inside the laboratory, a human and a Mazarian stood side by side, the fruits of their collaboration suspended in cryogenic stasis before them. The clock was ticking, and the choices they made in the coming hours would resonate far beyond the confines of their alien laboratory. Mark's gaze darted between the cryogenically frozen embryos and Dr. Antares' alien features. His mind raced, calculating the consequences of their next move. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on him, suffocating in its intensity. "We can't abandon our work," he said, his voice low but firm. "Not when we're so close to a breakthrough." Antares' tentacles writhed, a sign Mark had come to recognize as deep contemplation. "What do you propose, human?" Mark took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he was about to suggest. "We continue our research in secret. The Zenith has cloaking technology, right? We use it to hide from Earth's detection and keep working." The Mazarian scientist's compound eyes widened, reflecting the gravity of Mark's proposition. After a moment of tense silence, she nodded. "I will speak with the captain. The scientific value of our work may persuade him to grant us more time." As Antares glided away to confer with the Mazarian leadership, Mark turned to the holographic display. Dr. Emily Chen's image flickered, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Emily, I need your help," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm staying aboard the Zenith. We're too close to give up now. Can I count on your support from Earth?" Dr. Chen's holographic form shifted uncomfortably. "Mark, what you're proposing is incredibly risky, but I understand the importance of this research. I'll do what I can to assist you covertly." Mark nodded gratefully as the communication ended. He turned to find Antares returning, her tentacles curled in what he now recognized as a gesture of success. "The captain has agreed to a limited extension," she announced. "We must work quickly and discreetly." As if on cue, Alarms blared throughout the ship. The Zenith shuddered as its engines roared to life. Through the laboratory's viewport, Mark watched Earth grow smaller as they retreated to the far side of the moon. Initiating cloaking sequence, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. The ship's exterior shimmered, becoming invisible to Earth's tracking systems. With their temporary sanctuary secured, Mark and Antares threw themselves into their work with renewed vigor. They refined the gravity manipulation chamber, fine-tuning it to create the optimal environment for human embryo development. Days blurred together as they worked tirelessly, their only measure of time, the growth of the embryos they had created. Mark found himself marveling at the alien technology at their disposal, its complexity far beyond anything available on Earth. As they monitored the embryo's progress, Mark and Antares worked in increasingly close proximity. The lab, designed for Mazarian physiology, forced them to adapt to each other's movements and working styles. "Fascinating," Antares murmured one day, her tentacles dancing over a control panel. "The rate of cellular division in these embryos far exceeds normal human parameters." Mark leaned in, his shoulder brushing against Antares' exoskeleton. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him, a reminder of the strange intimacy that had developed between them. "Could it be a result of the gravity manipulation?" he asked, trying to focus on the data before them. Antares' head tilted, a gesture Mark had come to associate with curiosity. "Possibly, but there's another factor we haven't considered." Her tentacle reached out, activating a different set of sensors. "These readings suggest the presence of Mazarian pheromones in the chamber's atmosphere." Mark's eyes widened as he processed the implications. "Are you saying Mazarian biology might be the key to solving human fertility issues?" Before Antares could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A news broadcast from Earth filled the lab, Senator Harper's face dominating the screen. "The alien menace grows stronger by the day," Harper's voice boomed. "With the treasonous actions of Dr. Mark Hunter, who has betrayed humanity to aid these extraterrestrial interlopers, we must take decisive action to protect our planet." Mark's stomach churned as he watched Harper whip the crowd into a frenzy of xenophobic fervor. The senator's words were followed by images of Earth's military vessels preparing for launch, their weapons systems clearly designed for offensive action. Antares' tentacles curled inward, a sign of distress Mark had learned to recognize. "Your people fear us that much?" she asked, her alien voice tinged with what sounded like sadness. Mark reached out, his hand hovering uncertainly before resting on one of Antares' tentacles. "Not all of us. Some of us see the potential for cooperation, for mutual benefit." Their moment of understanding was interrupted by a violent shudder that rocked the ship. Warning klaxons blared as the Zenith's cloaking device flickered. "Power systems critical," the ship's AI announced. "Cloaking field unstable." Mark and Antares shared a look of alarm. Their safe haven was crumbling around them, and Earth's military would soon be bearing down on their position. "We need more time," Mark said, his mind racing. "The embryos, the pheromone discovery, we're so close to a breakthrough." Antares' compound eyes fixed on him, her alien features unreadable. "What are you suggesting, human?" Mark took a deep breath, knowing his next words could change everything. "I'll volunteer for direct exposure to Mazarian pheromones. If we're right about their effect on human biology, it could be the key to solving the fertility crisis." Antares recoiled slightly, her tentacles writhing in agitation. "The risks to you would be significant. We have no data on prolonged human exposure to our pheromones." "We're out of options and out of time," Mark argued. "This might be our only chance to complete the research before we're discovered." For a long moment, Antares was silent, her alien mind clearly weighing the possibilities. Finally, she nodded. "Very well, but I will be the pheromone donor. If we're to take this risk, we'll do it together." As they prepared the specialized chamber for the experiment, the Zenith shuddered again. The cloaking field flickered visibly now, their hidden lunar orbit becoming more precarious by the minute. Mark stepped into the chamber, his heart pounding. He watched as Antares manipulated the controls, releasing a carefully measured dose of her pheromones into the enclosed space. The effect was almost immediate. Mark's senses heightened, his skin tingling as if charged with electricity. Through the chamber's transparent walls, he saw Antares monitoring his vital signs, her tentacles moving with practiced precision over the alien controls. As the pheromones saturated the air around him, Mark felt a strange connection forming. It was as if he could sense Antares' presence more acutely, her alien consciousness brushing against the edges of his awareness. Just as the experiment reached its peak, alarms blared throughout the zenith. The ship's AI spoke, its artificial voice laden with urgency. "Alert! Earth vessels detected. Approach vector indicates hostile intent." Mark and Antares locked eyes through the chamber wall, a moment of shared understanding passing between them. They had come too far to give up now. As the Mazarian captain's voice echoed through the ship, ordering immediate evacuation, Mark and Antares made their choice. They sealed the laboratory doors, cutting themselves off from the rest of the zenith. The ship shuddered around them, preparing for emergency teleportation. In those final moments before the zenith vanished, leaving them behind, Mark pressed his hand against the chamber wall. On the other side, Antares' tentacle met his palm, an alien gesture of solidarity. The laboratory fell silent as the zenith disappeared, teleporting to safety. Mark and Antares stood alone amidst their research, the fruits of their collaboration surrounding them. Through the viewport, they could see Earth's military vessels approaching, weapons at the ready. As klaxons blared and the remnants of the zenith systems warned of imminent contact, Mark and Antares faced each other, human and Mazarian, now united in their quest for knowledge and understanding, prepared to confront whatever came next. The fate of two species hung in the balance as Earth's ships closed in. In the sterile confines of the alien laboratory, a new chapter in human-Mazarian relations was about to unfold. The laboratory trembled as Earth's military vessels initiated docking procedures, their massive forms looming outside the viewport. Mark's mind raced, his heightened senses, a result of the pheromone exposure, processing information at an unprecedented rate. He turned to Antares, their eyes meeting in a moment of shared desperation and dedication. "We can't let them take our research," Mark said, his voice low and urgent. "Everything we've worked for, everything we've discovered, it's too important to lose." Antares' tentacles writhed in agreement. "Agreed. We must secure our data immediately." They sprang into action, moving with practiced efficiency. Mark grabbed a handful of data crystals, Mazarian technology capable of storing vast amounts of information, while Antares interfaced with the lab's computer systems. "Transferring files now," Antares announced, her tentacles dancing over the alien controls. The data crystals in Mark's hand pulsed with soft blue light as they absorbed years of groundbreaking research. The sound of metal grinding against metal echoed through the lab as the Earth vessels completed their docking sequence. Time was running out. Mark's eyes darted around the room, searching for a way out. His gaze fell on a small panel near the far wall, the emergency teleportation system left behind when the zenith departed. "Antares," he said, a spark of hope igniting in his chest. "The teleporter. Can we use it to beam ourselves to Earth?" The Mazarian scientist's compound eyes widened. "Possible, but risky. It's not designed for interplanetary transport." "Can you reconfigure it?" Mark pressed, already moving towards the panel. Antares glided across the lab, her tentacles extending to interface with the teleporter's controls. "I can attempt to link it with the lab's systems. It will require significant power redistribution and a precise calculation of Earth's position relative to our current location." As Antares worked, Mark could hear the sound of cutting torches on the other side of the sealed laboratory doors. Earth's forces were moments away from breaching their sanctuary. "How much longer?" Mark asked, his heart pounding. "Calibration at 87%, Antares replied, her voice steady despite the pressure. "We require a destination, somewhere isolated, with minimal chance of immediate discovery." Mark's mind raced through possibilities. "The Siberian tundra," he said suddenly. "There's an abandoned research facility there. It's remote, off the grid." Antares nodded, inputting the coordinates. The teleporter hummed to life, its platform glowing with an otherworldly light. "It's ready," Antares announced. "But Mark, we must hurry. The power drain will be detected." As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the lab. The door's integrity field flickered, signaling its imminent failure. Mark grabbed the data crystals and rushed to the teleporter platform. Antares joined him, her tentacles still manipulating the controls. They stood side by side, human and Mazarian, united in their quest for knowledge and understanding. "Now!" Mark shouted as the laboratory doors began to slide open. Antares activated the teleporter. The world around them dissolved into a brilliant flash of light. Mark felt a sensation of weightlessness, followed by intense pressure. His nerve endings fired all at once, sending conflicting signals to his brain. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. The sterile environment of the Mazarian lab was replaced by cold, stale air and dim lighting. Mark stumbled, his legs weak from the teleportation. Beside him, Antares swayed, her tentacles curling and uncurling as she regained her equilibrium. As his vision cleared, Mark took in their new surroundings. They stood in a cavernous room filled with dust-covered equipment and defunct computer terminals. The contrast between this outdated human technology and the advanced Mazarian lab they'd left behind was stark. "We made it," Mark breathed, his voice echoing in the empty space. Antares moved to a nearby window, her compound eyes taking in the bleak, snow-covered landscape outside. "The Siberian tundra, as you specified. We appear to be undetected for now." Mark nodded, already assessing their situation. "We need to set up a lab, continue our work. There's old equipment here we can salvage." Over the next few hours, Mark and Antares worked tirelessly to create a makeshift research station. They repurposed outdated human technology, integrating it with the Mazarian devices they'd brought. The result was a unique hybrid of two worlds' scientific knowledge. As they worked, Mark became acutely aware of the changes in his body. His muscles didn't tire as quickly as they should have. His mind seemed clearer, more focused. He caught Antares watching him with scientific curiosity. "The pheromones," she said, her tentacles gesturing towards him. "They've had a more profound effect than we anticipated. Your vital signs show significant enhancements in stamina, cellular regeneration, and cognitive function." Mark flexed his hand, marveling at the subtle differences he could feel. "Is it permanent?" "Unknown," Antares replied. "We'll need to monitor the changes closely." As they continued to work side by side, Mark found himself hyper-aware of Antares' presence. The connection between them, which had been growing steadily throughout their collaboration, seemed to intensify in this isolated environment. He noticed subtle changes in her behavior too, more expressive movements of her tentacles, a softening in her usually clinical tone. Their research took an unexpected turn as they analyzed the data from Mark's pheromone exposure. The implications reached far beyond fertility enhancement. "Mark!" Antares called, her voice tinged with excitement. "Look at these cellular regeneration rates. The potential applications for human longevity are staggering." Mark leaned in, his shoulder brushing against Antares' exoskeleton. The contact sent a now familiar jolt through him. "And look at these cognitive enhancement markers. The symbiosis between human and Mazarian biology, it's more comprehensive than we ever imagined." As the full scope of their discoveries became clear, a heavy silence fell over the lab. Mark met Antares' compound eyes, seeing his own mixture of awe and apprehension reflected there. "We could revolutionize human evolution," Mark said softly. Antares' tentacles curled thoughtfully. "But such knowledge, in the wrong hands, could lead to conflict exploitation," Mark finished. "We're sitting on a powder keg, Antares." Before they could discuss further, a shrill alarm cut through the air. Antares rushed to their makeshift sensor array, her tentacles flying over the controls. "Aircraft approaching," she announced, her voice tense. "Multiple signals. It appears the United Earth government has located us." Mark's mind raced. They were out of time, out of options. Then a bold idea struck him. "The data crystals," he said, turning to Antares. "Can we use them to hack into Earth's global communication network? Broadcast our findings to everyone all at once?" Antares' compound eyes widened. "Possible, but complex. I would need to modify our equipment significantly." "Do it," Mark said, already moving to help. "I'll craft a message, something that explains the importance of our work without causing panic." As the sound of approaching helicopters grew louder, Mark and Antares worked with frantic energy. Antares' tentacles moved with incredible precision, modifying their communication equipment to interface with Earth systems. Mark pored over their data, distilling years of research into a concise, impactful message. The walls of the old facility trembled as the aircraft drew nearer. Mark could hear the whine of engines, the thud of rotors cutting through the frigid Siberian air. "It's ready," Antares announced, her tentacles poised over the broadcast controls. Mark took a deep breath, looking at the data crystal that held their message. A message that would change the course of human history and interstellar relations forever. "Do it," he said. Antares activated the broadcast. On screens across the planet, their message began to transmit. Mark and Antares stood side by side, watching as the fruits of their labor spread across the globe. Outside, the sound of landing aircraft and shouted orders grew louder. But inside the old facility, human and Mazarian stood united, their discovery poised to reshape the future of two species. As the door to their makeshift lab began to buckle under external pressure, Mark turned to Antares. In her alien features, he saw not an outsider, but a partner, a friend, perhaps something more. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Together. The door burst open, flooding the dim lab with harsh light. Mark instinctively moved to shield Antares, but stopped short when he saw who entered. Dr. Emily Chen strode in, flanked by a team of scientists and military personnel. Her eyes widened as she took in the makeshift lab and its two occupants. "Mark, Dr. Antares, you're safe," she said, relief evident in her voice. "Your broadcast. It's changed everything." Mark blinked, struggling to process the sudden shift. "You're not here to arrest us?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "Quite the opposite. We're here to protect you and your work. The United Earth government has ordered a full security detail for this facility." As she spoke, military personnel moved efficiently through the space, setting up equipment and securing the perimeter. The old facility hummed with new energy as state-of-the-art technology was swiftly installed alongside the jury-rigged setup Mark and Antares had cobbled together. Antares glided forward, her tentacles curling with curiosity. "Our findings have been well received?" "Well received is an understatement," Dr. Chen replied. "You've sparked a global scientific revolution. Research institutions worldwide are scrambling to verify and expand upon your work." Over the next few hours, the outdated Siberian facility transformed into a cutting-edge laboratory. Human and Mazarian technology merged seamlessly, creating a unique hybrid environment that mirrored the groundbreaking nature of their research. As Mark and Antares worked to replicate their experiments under the watchful eyes of human and Mazarian observers, the pressure was palpable. The fate of human fertility and interspecies relations hung on the reproducibility of their results. Mark felt the weight of expectation, but also a surge of energy he'd never experienced before. His movements were more precise, his mind clearer and sharper. He caught Dr. Chen watching him with a mix of awe and concern. "The physical changes," she began, gesturing towards him. Mark nodded. "Side effects of the Mazarian pheromone exposure. We're still studying the full implications." Antares moved closer, her compound eyes fixed on Mark. "The enhancements to your cellular structure and cognitive function are remarkable. We must continue to monitor these changes closely." As they worked, a commotion outside the lab drew their attention. A sleek, otherworldly craft had landed near the facility. From it emerged a delegation of Mazarians, led by a stern-looking male with deep blue skin. Dr. Chen's eyes widened. "That's Ambassador Zorax. The Mazarian High Council must have sent him in response to the broadcast." The ambassador entered the lab, his gaze sweeping over the hybrid technology before settling on Antares. "Dr. Antares," he said, his voice carrying a note of disapproval, "the High Council demands an explanation for this unauthorized disclosure of Mazarian biological data." Before Antares could respond, a cry of joy erupted from across the lab. Dr. Chen rushed over to a group of human scientists huddled around a computer terminal. "It worked," she announced, her voice thick with emotion. "We've successfully replicated the fertility enhancement process. The first confirmed pregnancies, they're real." The lab erupted in cheers, but Mark noticed Ambassador Zorax's tentacles twitch with unease. The implications of this success were enormous, and not everyone would view them positively. As if on cue, a holographic display flickered to life, showing a news broadcast. Senator Harper's face filled the screen, his expression grave. "My fellow humans," he began, "today we stand at a crossroads. While some celebrate these alien interventions in our biology, I must warn you of the dangers of genetic contamination. We must regulate this technology before it's too late." Mark felt a chill run down his spine. He turned to Antares, seeking reassurance, but froze when he saw her. Something was different. Her movements were more fluid, almost human-like, and her eyes held an emotional depth he'd never seen before. "Antares?" he questioned softly. She met his gaze, confusion evident in her features. "Mark, I feel strange. Different." Ambassador Zorax noticed the exchange and moved closer, his tentacles writhing with agitation. What is happening to her? This prolonged exposure to human biology? It's altering her. As tensions in the lab rose, Mark became acutely aware of the growing connection between himself and Antares. It was more than just a scientific partnership now. The depth of his feelings for her hit him like a physical force. Antares seemed to sense his realization. Her tentacle reached out, intertwining with his fingers, in a gesture that was both alien and intimately familiar. Ambassador Zorax recoiled at the sight. "This is unacceptable. Dr. Antares, you must return to the Mazarian homeworld immediately for examination. We cannot risk further contamination." The thought of separation from Antares sent a jolt of panic through Mark. Without thinking, he stepped forward, still holding Antares' tentacle. "No," he said firmly. "Antares stays here. What's happening between us, it's not contamination. It's evolution. A bridge between our species that could change everything." The lab fell silent, all eyes on Mark and Antares. In that moment, standing united against the prejudices of both their species, they made a choice that would alter the course of human-Mazarian relations forever. As they prepared to face the consequences of their declaration, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Dr. Chen rushed to a security terminal, her face paling as she read the incoming data. "We've got incoming," she announced grimly. "A heavily armed group approaching fast. Intel suggests they're a radical anti-alien faction, likely inspired by Senator Harper's rhetoric." Mark's mind raced. They had to protect their research, their discoveries that could save humanity and forge a new future with the Mazarians. He looked at Antares, seeing his own dedication reflected in her alien features. "We need to secure the data," he said urgently. "Everything we've worked for, everything we've discovered, we can't let them destroy it." As the facility erupted into frenzied activity, with security personnel rushing to defensive positions and scientists scrambling to back up their findings, Mark and Antares stood at the center of the storm. The attack was coming, and with it, a fight for the future of two species. The choices they made in the next few moments would shape the destiny of both humanity and the Mazarians for generations to come. "Come!" As the facility trembled under the first waves of assault, Mark's enhanced senses picked up minute vibrations through the floor. He locked eyes with Antares, a silent understanding passing between them. "We need to secure the data and fortify our position," Mark announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Dr. Chen, start the evacuation protocol for non-essential personnel. Ambassador Zorax, we could use Mazarian expertise in upgrading our defenses." Dr. Chen nodded sharply and began coordinating the evacuation, her fingers flying over a holographic interface as she initiated data backups to multiple off-site locations. Ambassador Zorax, his earlier disapproval, giving way to grudging cooperation in the face of imminent danger, gestured to his aides. "I will contact the High Council for additional support," he stated, his tentacles weaving complex patterns in the air as he communicated with his ship. Mark turned to Antares, noting how her movements seemed more fluid, almost human-like. "We need to integrate Mazarian shielding technology with the facility's systems. Can you lead that effort?" Antares bobbed her head in affirmation, already moving towards the facility's central control hub. "I'll need a team of human engineers to assist with the integration," she called over her shoulder. As they worked feverishly to prepare their defenses, the first electromagnetic pulse struck. Lights flickered, and several human-designed systems sputtered. However, the core Mazarian tech remained operational, its alien circuitry immune to the EMP's effects. "The shielding is holding," Antares announced, her voice tinged with both relief and pride. Outside, the sound of approaching vehicles and shouted orders grew louder. Mark rushed to a view screen, his enhanced vision allowing him to pick out details in the gathering darkness. The anti-alien force was larger than expected, their weapons and equipment speaking to significant backing. "They're well-funded," Mark muttered. "This isn't just some fringe group." Dr. Chen appeared at his side, her face grim. "Senator Harper's been busy," she said, pulling up a holographic display of the senator's latest inflammatory speech. His words rang out, filled with vitriol against alien contamination and calls to preserve human purity. Before they could discuss further, the facility rocked with the impact of the first physical assault. Alarms blared as the outer perimeter was breached. "All personnel to battle stations," Mark commanded, his voice carrying an authority he'd never possessed before the Mazarian enhancements. He felt a surge of energy coursing through his body, his muscles coiling with potential energy. As he moved to coordinate the defense, he caught sight of Dr. Chen studying him intently. "What is it?" he asked, noting the mixture of awe and concern in her eyes. "Your latest scans," she said, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "The changes in your DNA, they're accelerating. Mark, you might be the key to a new stage of human evolution." The weight of her words hit him, but there was no time to process the implications. The sound of gunfire erupted from the eastern wing of the facility. "They're inside!" someone shouted. Mark sprinted towards the sound, his enhanced speed allowing him to cover ground at an impossible rate. He arrived to find a group of infiltrators attempting to breach the central laboratory. Without hesitation, he engaged the intruders. His movements were a blur, each strike precise and devastatingly effective. As he fought, he became aware of a presence at his side. Antares had joined the fray, her tentacles lashing out with surprising strength and agility. Together they moved in perfect synchronization, as if they could anticipate each other's actions. Human and Mazarian, they formed an unstoppable duo, quickly overwhelming the attackers despite being outnumbered. As the last infiltrator fell, Mark turned to Antares, breathing heavily. He noticed subtle changes in her physiology. Her skin seemed softer, more pliable, and her eyes held a depth of emotion he'd never seen before. "Antares," he began, reaching out to touch her arm. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through both of them. Their moment of connection was interrupted by Ambassador Zorax's arrival. The Mazarian leader's tentacles writhed with agitation as he surveyed the scene. "This attack," he said, his voice filled with a new commitment, "it cannot stand. The Mazarian people will not allow our research, our future, to be destroyed by ignorance and fear." He turned to his security detail. "Engage fully in the facility's defense. Today, we stand with our human allies." As the battle raged on, Mark found himself at the heart of the conflict. Drawing on his newfound abilities, he led a daring counteroffensive. His enhanced strength and speed turned the tide, breaking through the attackers' lines and sending them into disarray. In the aftermath of the retreat, evidence left behind by the fleeing forces painted a damning picture. Data pads and communication logs pointed directly to Senator Harper's inner circle, exposing the conspiracy behind the attack. As the facility began the process of repair and recovery, Mark found Antares in a quiet corner of the lab. She was examining a holographic display of her own bioscan, her tentacles moving in patterns that spoke of confusion and wonder. "Mark," she said as he approached, "something's changing. My biology, it's shifting, becoming more compatible with humans." She looked up at him, her compound eyes shimmering with an almost human quality. "With you." He took her tentacle in his hand, marveling at how natural it felt. "Whatever comes next," he said softly, "we'll face it together." As they stood there, united in the aftermath of battle, and on the cusp of a new evolutionary frontier, alarms began to sound once more. But this time, it wasn't an attack. Holographic screens throughout the facility lit up with breaking news. "Senator Harper facing censure," the headlines blared. "Global support surges for human Mazarian research project." Mark and Antares watched as the world reacted to the events of the past few hours. The thwarted attack, the exposed conspiracy, and the unprecedented cooperation between humans and Mazarians had captured the imagination of people across the globe. "This is just the beginning," Antares said, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Mark nodded, his mind already racing with the possibilities and challenges that lay ahead. The future of human-Mazarian relations, the potential for a new stage of human evolution, and the deepening bond between himself and Antares, all of these threads were beginning to weave together into a tapestry of unprecedented change. As they stood at the threshold of this new era, Mark and Antares knew that their greatest adventures and their greatest challenges still lay ahead. Ahead still lay before them. As the news continued to stream across the holographic displays, Mark felt a gentle tug on his hand. He looked down to see Antares' tentacle intertwined with his fingers, a gesture that now felt as natural as breathing. "We should address the team," Antares said, her voice carrying a new depth of emotion. "They need to know what's coming next." Mark nodded, squeezing her tentacle gently. Together, they made their way to the facility's main auditorium, where the remaining staff had gathered. As they entered, a hush fell over the crowd. Human and Mazarian eyes alike turned to them, filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Standing at the podium, Mark took a deep breath. "Today we've faced unprecedented challenges," he began, his enhanced voice carrying to every corner of the room. "But we've also witnessed the birth of something extraordinary. The attack on our facility has exposed the depths of fear and ignorance that still exist, but it has also shown us the strength we possess when we stand united." Antares stepped forward, her movements fluid and almost human-like. "What we've accomplished here goes beyond scientific breakthrough," she added. "We've begun to bridge the gap between our species in ways we never imagined possible." As they spoke, holographic displays flickered to life around the auditorium, showcasing the latest data from their research. Gasps of awe rippled through the audience as they witnessed the remarkable changes in both Mark's and Antares' physiologies. Dr. Chen stepped forward, her eyes bright with excitement. "The implications of these changes are staggering," she explained. "We're looking at the potential for a new stage of human evolution, one that could address not just our fertility crisis, but a host of other medical and biological challenges." The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. News of the attack and the subsequent exposure of Senator Harper's conspiracy dominated global headlines. The United Earth government, recognizing the immense potential of human-Mazarian cooperation, moved swiftly to establish a new joint research initiative. Mark found himself in endless meetings with government officials, scientific advisors, and Mazarian representatives. The scope of what they were proposing was unprecedented. A neutral space station orbiting Earth, dedicated entirely to advancing their research. "We're calling it Project Convergence," announced the newly appointed Secretary of Interspecies Affairs. "And we want you, Dr. Reeves, to lead the human side of the initiative." Mark's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm just a xenobiologist. Surely there are more qualified candidates." Ambassador Zorax, who had become an unexpected ally, interrupted. "You underestimate yourself, Dr. Reeves. Your unique physiology and your bond with Dr. Antares make you the ideal choice. The Mazarian High Council agrees." As plans for the space station, christened Unity, took shape, Mark and Antares found themselves at the center of a global scientific revolution. Their work in Siberia had been just the beginning. Now, with the resources of both Earth and Mazaria behind them, the possibilities seemed endless. Construction of Unity progressed at a breakneck pace. The station took shape in Earth's orbit, a gleaming symbol of interspecies collaboration. As the first teams of human and Mazarian scientists began to arrive, Mark couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at what they had accomplished. Standing in Unity's central laboratory, surrounded by state-of-the-art equipment from both worlds, Mark turned to Antares. "Can you believe we're really here?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. Antares' tentacles rippled in a gesture Mark had come to recognize as a smile. "It's more than I ever dreamed possible," she replied. "But we're just getting started." As they settled into their new roles, the first wave of human pregnancies resulting from their fertility treatment reached full term. The births of healthy babies to previously infertile couples sparked worldwide celebrations. Support for Project Convergence soared, silencing many of its critics. But with success came new challenges. As Mark's enhanced abilities continued to develop, surpassing normal human limits, he became a subject of intense study himself. His strength, endurance, and cognitive functions had increased exponentially, making him a living example of the potential benefits of human-Mazarian integration. Antares, too, had undergone remarkable changes. Her physiology had become increasingly human-compatible, allowing for deeper levels of interaction and understanding between them. Together, they worked tirelessly to study these changes and their implications for both species. Months passed and Unity became a hub of groundbreaking research and discovery. The station's diverse population of human and Mazarian scientists worked in harmony, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. Then came the day they had all been waiting for. The first generation of human-Mazarian hybrid children began to show signs of extraordinary abilities. These children, born to human parents who had undergone the fertility treatment, displayed enhanced physical and mental capabilities that surpassed both human and Mazarian norms. Mark stood in the observation room, watching as a young girl effortlessly solved complex mathematical equations that would challenge most adults. "It's incredible," he murmured, turning to Dr. Chen. "But what does this mean for the future?" Dr. Chen's expression was a mixture of excitement and concern. "That's what we need to figure out," she replied. "These children could represent an evolutionary leap forward for both species. But there are concerns about the long-term impact, the potential emergence of a new hybrid race." As news of the hybrid children's abilities spread, it sparked a new wave of debate both on Earth and Mazaria. Ambassador Zorax found himself working tirelessly to quell fears within the Mazarian High Council about genetic dilution. "This is not the end of our species," Zorax argued passionately before the council. "It is a new beginning, a chance for both humans and Mazarians to evolve together. These children represent the best of both worlds." His efforts paid off. The Mazarian government increased its investment in Project Convergence and relaxed restrictions on human-Mazarian personal relationships. On Earth, the political landscape underwent a seismic shift. Senator Harper and his anti-alien faction faced criminal charges for their involvement in the attack on the Siberian facility. The United Earth government implemented new laws protecting interspecies relationships and research, marking a definitive turn towards integration with the galactic community. Mark and Antares, now openly in a relationship, became symbols of successful human-Mazarian cooperation. Their work on Unity led to further breakthroughs, including treatments for previously incurable human diseases using Mazarian biological principles. As these medical advancements generated immense public goodwill, Mazarian technology began to integrate more deeply into human society. As Project Convergence expanded its scope, a new challenge emerged on the horizon. Other alien species, observing the rapid advancements resulting from human-Mazarian collaboration, began to express interest in establishing similar partnerships with humanity. The news came during a routine briefing. "The Galactic Council has sent a formal request," announced the Earth's ambassador to the Council. "They want to send a delegation to Unity to assess our project and its implications for interstellar relations." Mark and Antares exchanged glances, recognizing the weight of this development. The arrival of the Galactic Council delegation would present both unprecedented opportunities and significant risks. The fate of Project Convergence, the future of human-Mazarian relations, and humanity's place in the galactic community would hang in the balance. As they prepared for the upcoming diplomatic challenge, Mark felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. He looked out at the Earth below, its blue expanse a reminder of how far they'd come and how much farther they had yet to go. "Are we ready for this?" he asked Antares, who stood beside him at the viewing port. She reached out, her tentacle intertwining with his fingers in what had become their unique gesture of intimacy. "Together," she said, "we're ready for anything." The couple stood in silence, watching as a distant point of light grew brighter, the approaching ship of the Galactic Council delegation. The next chapter in their extraordinary journey was about to begin, and the universe itself seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. Anticipation. As the ship docked with Unity Station, Mark felt a surge of nervous energy course through him. He glanced at Antares, her tentacles rippling with a similar tension. "They're here," he said softly. The delegation from the Galactic Council disembarked, a diverse array of alien species filing into Unity's main reception area. Mark and Antares stood at attention, flanked by Dr. Chen and Ambassador Zorax. The air hummed with the low murmur of translators as greetings were exchanged. "Welcome to Unity," Mark said, his voice carrying across the room. "We're honored to have you here." The lead delegate, a tall insectoid being with iridescent wings, stepped forward. "We are most interested in your work, Dr. Reeves," it said, multifaceted eyes gleaming. "The implications of human-Mazarian compatibility have not gone unnoticed." As the delegation settled in, Mark and Antares led them to the station's primary conference room. Holographic displays flickered to life, showcasing the latest data from Project Convergence. Mark began his presentation, his enhanced mind allowing him to process and articulate complex information with ease. "Our fertility treatments have not only addressed Earth's population crisis," Mark explained, gesturing to a chart showing birth rates, "but have also led to unexpected advancements in human physiology." He went on to detail the medical breakthroughs, the cures for previously incurable diseases, and the enhanced abilities displayed by hybrid individuals. The delegates leaned forward, their attention rapt. Antares took over, her tentacles gracefully manipulating the holographic controls. "The genetic advancements we've achieved have implications far beyond our two species," she said, her voice filled with passion. "We believe this research could pave the way for greater interspecies compatibility across the galaxy." As she delved into the intricate details of their genetic work, a commotion erupted outside the conference room. Alarms blared, and the station's security system sprang to life. "Warning, unauthorized access detected in Sector 7, an AI voice announced. "Security breach in progress." Mark's enhanced senses kicked into overdrive. He could hear the distant sound of weapons fire and smell the acrid scent of ozone. "We're under attack," he said, his body tensing for action. Commander Elena Vasquez burst into the room, her face grim. "Dr. Reeves, we have a situation. A group of human purist extremists has infiltrated the station. They're armed and dangerous." Mark nodded, his mind already racing through possible strategies. "Antares, initiate emergency protocols. Seal off all critical areas and secure our research data." Antares moved swiftly to a nearby console, her tentacles flying over the controls. "On it," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. Mark turned to the Galactic Council delegates, who were watching the unfolding events with a mixture of alarm and curiosity. "Please remain here. We'll ensure your safety." He joined Commander Vasquez at the door, his enhanced physiology primed for action. "What's our status?" he asked as they moved swiftly through the corridors. "The attackers are using advanced weaponry," Vasquez replied, her voice tense. "They've managed to disable some of our security systems. We're working to contain them, but they're pushing towards the central power core." Mark's eyes widened. "If they take out the power core, the entire station could be destroyed," Vasquez finished grimly. They reached the security hub, where screens displayed the ongoing battle throughout the station. Mark watched as Unity's security forces engaged the attackers, a mix of human and Mazarian guards working in tandem. "We need to outmaneuver them," Mark said, his enhanced mind processing the tactical situation at lightning speed. "Commander, can you coordinate a pincer movement to cut off their advance?" Vasquez nodded, already relaying orders through her comm unit. "What about you?" she asked. Mark's eyes flickered to a schematic of the station. "I'm going after the power core. I can use the maintenance shafts to get there faster." "That's too dangerous," Vasquez protested, but Mark was already moving. He tapped his comm link. "Antares, I need your help. Guide me through the maintenance shafts to the power core." "I'm with you." Antares' voice came through, clear and determined. Mark entered the narrow confines of the maintenance shaft, his enhanced strength and agility allowing him to move with surprising speed. Antares' voice guided him through the labyrinth of tunnels, her intimate knowledge of the station's layout proving invaluable. "Left at the next junction," she instructed. "Be careful, Mark. I'm detecting multiple heat signatures near the power core. Mark emerged from the shaft into a dimly lit corridor. Ahead, he could hear the sound of voices and the beep of electronic equipment. He crept forward, his enhanced senses on high alert. 3 attackers stood around the power core, attaching devices to its surface. Mark recognized them as experimental energy disruptors, capable of destabilizing the core's containment field. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for action. With lightning speed, he launched himself at the nearest attacker, his enhanced strength sending the man flying across the room. The other 2 turned, raising their weapons, but Mark was already moving. He dodged energy blasts with inhuman agility, closing the distance and disarming the second attacker with a swift strike. The third managed to fire off a shot that grazed Mark's arm, but he pushed through the pain, tackling the man to the ground. With the immediate threat neutralized, Mark turned his attention to the devices on the power core. "Antares, I need your help disabling these things," he said into his comm. "I see them," Antares replied. "They're using a hybrid of human and Mazarian technology. Clever, but I can talk you through the disarming process." Under Antares' expert guidance, Mark carefully deactivated the disruptors. As the last one powered down, he let out a sigh of relief. "Power core secure," he reported. Commander Vasquez's voice crackled over the comm. "Excellent work, Dr. Reeves. We've apprehended the remaining attackers. The station is secure." Mark made his way back to the conference room, where he found the Galactic Council delegates engaged in animated discussion with Antares and Dr. Chen. As he entered, all eyes turned to him. The lead delegate stepped forward. "Dr. Reeves, we have witnessed a most impressive display of human-Mazarian cooperation," it said. "Your actions and those of your team have demonstrated the practical benefits of your work far more effectively than any presentation could have." Mark nodded, feeling a mix of exhaustion and elation. "Thank you," he said, "though I hope our future demonstrations can be a bit less dramatic." The delegates' mandibles clicked in what Mark assumed was amusement. "Indeed, we would like to extend our stay on Unity Station. We wish to see a more comprehensive demonstration of Project Convergence's achievements and potential applications." Mark exchanged a glance with Antares, seeing his own excitement mirrored in her eyes. This was their chance to showcase the full potential of their work to the galaxy at large. "We would be honored," Mark said. "There's so much more we have to show you." As the delegates filed out, already discussing plans for the extended visit, Mark felt the weight of the opportunity before them. The success of their upcoming presentations could determine humanity's future role in galactic affairs. He turned to Antares, Dr. Chen, and Commander Vasquez. "We have a lot of work ahead of us," he said. "Let's show the galaxy what human-Mazarian collaboration can really do." With renewed purpose, the team set to work, preparing to unveil the full scope of their research to the Galactic Council. The fate of Earth's place in the galactic community hung in the balance, but Mark felt a surge of confidence. Together, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the team worked tirelessly to prepare for their presentation to the Galactic Council, Dr. Antares noticed subtle changes in her physiology. Her tentacles seemed more sensitive, and she experienced waves of fatigue unlike anything she'd felt before. Initially dismissing these symptoms as stress-related, she continued to focus on the task at hand. It wasn't until a routine medical scan that the truth became apparent. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she studied the results, her voice barely above a whisper as she turned to Antares. "You're pregnant." The news hit Antares like a shockwave. She stared at the holographic display, her tentacles coiling and uncoiling in rapid succession. "That's impossible," she murmured. But the evidence was undeniable. The scan showed a developing fetus, a perfect blend of human and Mazarian DNA. Mark burst into the medical bay, alerted by the commotion. "What's going on?" he asked, his enhanced senses picking up on the tension in the room. Dr. Chen turned to him, a mix of excitement and disbelief in her eyes. "Congratulations, Dr. Reeves. You're going to be a father." The revelation sent ripples through Unity Station. As word spread, the team realized they had stumbled upon the ultimate proof of their research's success. What had begun as a solution to Earth's population crisis had evolved into something far more profound, the ability to transcend the biological barriers between species. In the final hours before the Galactic Council's arrival, Mark and Antares made a crucial decision. They would incorporate this unexpected development into their presentation, showcasing the living embodiment of human-Mazarian compatibility. The day of the presentation arrived, and the atmosphere on Unity Station crackled with anticipation. The Galactic Council members filed into the main auditorium, their diverse forms a testament to the vast array of life in the universe. Mark stepped onto the stage, his heart racing despite his outward calm. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," he began, "we stand before you today, not just as scientists, but as living proof of the potential for interspecies harmony." He gestured to Antares, who joined him on stage. "Dr. Antares and I are pleased to announce that we are expecting a child that carries both human and Mazarian DNA." A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Mark activated a holographic display showing detailed scans of the developing fetus. "As you can see, this child represents a perfect fusion of our two species. The implications for galactic society are profound." Dr. Chen took the stage next, presenting data on the first generation of human Mazarian hybrid children. Holographic images of teenagers appeared, each demonstrating remarkable abilities. These children, now in their early teens, show enhanced intelligence, physical prowess, and even latent telepathic abilities, Dr. Chen explained. She played a video of a hybrid teen solving complex mathematical equations at lightning speed, followed by another effortlessly lifting weights that would challenge even the strongest adult humans. Commander Vasquez stepped forward, her uniform crisp and authoritative. "The potential applications of these hybrid abilities extend far beyond civilian life," she said. "We've developed simulations showcasing how hybrid crews could revolutionize space exploration and defense." The auditorium transformed into a virtual starship bridge. Holographic hybrid crew members moved with incredible synchronization, their enhanced abilities allowing them to process vast amounts of data and react to space anomalies with unprecedented speed. As the simulation concluded, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Commander Vasquez's communicator crackled to life. "Commander, we've detected a massive asteroid on a collision course with Earth." The Galactic Council members stirred, their interest piqued by this unexpected turn of events. Mark and Antares exchanged glances, recognizing the opportunity before them. "Council members," Mark announced, his voice steady, "we invite you to witness a real-time demonstration of human Mazarian capabilities." Within minutes, Mark and Antares led a team of hybrids to the station's hangar. They boarded a prototype ship, its sleek design a fusion of human ingenuity and Mazarian technology. The Council watched via holographic feed as the ship launched into space, streaking towards the approaching asteroid. Inside the ship, Mark and Antares worked in perfect harmony. Their hybrid crew anticipated commands before they were given, their enhanced reflexes allowing for maneuvers that would be impossible for a standard human crew. As they approached the asteroid, Antares' tentacles danced across the controls, calculating the precise angle and force needed to alter its trajectory. Mark piloted the ship into position, his enhanced vision allowing him to navigate the debris field surrounding the massive rock. With a synchronized effort, the team activated the ship's modified tractor beam. The asteroid's path began to shift, degree by agonizing degree. Sweat beaded on Mark's forehead as he held the ship steady, the strain evident in his voice as he called out course corrections. After what seemed like an eternity, but was in reality only a matter of minutes, the asteroid's path cleared Earth's orbit. A cheer erupted from the hybrid crew, echoed by the team back on Unity Station. As the ship returned to the station, the Galactic Council burst into applause. The lead delegate, the insectoid being who had first greeted them, stepped forward. "We have witnessed something truly remarkable today," it announced. "The Council votes unanimously to grant Earth full membership in the galactic community. Furthermore, we propose the establishment of an interstellar academy on Earth dedicated to fostering cooperation and scientific exchange between all sentient species." The following months passed in a whirlwind of activity. As Unity Station buzzed with preparations for the new academy, Mark and Antares found moments of quiet anticipation. marveling at the life growing within Antares. Finally, the day arrived. In a medical bay that blended the best of human and Mazarian technology, Antares gave birth to a healthy hybrid child. The infant's cries echoed through the station, a sound that symbolized the dawn of a new era for both species. The birth was broadcast across Earth and to Mazaria, capturing the hearts and minds of both worlds. Images of the child with its delicate tentacles and bright human eyes became a symbol of hope and unity. Weeks later, Mark and Antares stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, their newborn cradled in Antares' tentacles. They gazed out at the stars, the vastness of space no longer a barrier, but a frontier of endless possibility. "I never imagined this," Antares said softly, her voice filled with wonder as she looked down at their child. "When I first arrived on Earth, the idea of human reproduction seemed so alien. And now—" Mark wrapped an arm around her, his enhanced senses allowing him to hear their child's steady heartbeat. "And now we're at the beginning of something amazing," he finished. As they stood there, a fleet of ships appeared on the horizon, their designs as varied as the species they carried. Delegates from across the galaxy were arriving for the opening of the new Interstellar Academy. Mark and Antares watched the ships approach, their child gurgling softly between them. They knew that the challenges ahead would be immense, but as they looked at their child, the living embodiment of two worlds united, they felt ready to face whatever the future might hold.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.